Welcome to the second edition of In a Crisis Family Matters. I was sitting around in social isolation trying to figure out what I could do to try to make a difference. And so the idea of this podcast came up. And the idea here is that I'm going to interview leaders of not-for-profits, businesses, and health professionals to look at concrete ways that we can make a difference in this time of crisis. So this morning, I want to introduce you to David Batstone. He is the founder of Not for Sale, which is a charity I've been involved with for about 8 years now. So David, welcome. And how are things going out there in California in this time of crisis?
I can really count myself fortunate. I have a home near the beach in Northern California. I can walk out my door and get social distancing for, a 2-hour hike, and I'll see one person. So,
David, you've been operating Not for Sale since 2006. Can you tell us a little bit more about Not for Sale and what Not for Sale does?
Not for Sale, first and foremost, is to protect children and women above all from human trafficking. I started it back in 2006 after I discovered that my favorite restaurant was a center for human trafficking ring in San Francisco. Over 500 young girls from Bangalore had been brought into the Bay Area over a period of over a decade. And they were forced to work in the restaurant and then taken out to fruit and vegetable fields. So from there, it began to extend our concern, and Mark Wexler and I decided to launch an organization that would help young children in Thailand first, who I met on a kind of year exploration.
Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping over the coming weeks we can come back and talk about many of the different projects that Not for Sale has, but I thought it would be helpful to really start with the project in northern Thailand. So what's the impact of this coronavirus situation been with the project in northern Thailand?
It was our first project, as you mentioned, northern Thailand. It was where we started. I had met a woman who had rescued street kids. If you've seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire, kids that are in that situation of being forced to beg or forced to sell their bodies in the commercial sex industry. And so we now have 150 kids in that village at any one time. Some have over the years graduated from universities even. And education and just livelihood survival has been a big focal point. Is how do we get them into a safe place where they're being nutritiously fed and cared for, but also go to have education. And all of that is under threat because of this virus. We can think of the ways of our individual families have been impacted, say through unemployment or through isolation. But imagine being out in the rural area of northern Thailand for their own protection, right near the border with Laos and Myanmar, the Golden Triangle. And they're isolated, so they can't get the food that they need. They can't get the education they need. There's not the opportunity to do Zoom classes. And so we've had to rethink the whole way we approach the delivery of services, but it's all more costly for us.
Mm-hmm. And what are you doing to adapt to these challenging times up there in northern Thailand?
Well, we need more money to give more food. They need more food, and so there's just a scarcity. They're down to one meal a day with rice and maybe some fish. So we definitely we didn't budget for this, and we're their sole provider. We're their only donor, as it were. We keep them going, and so that's a huge need. The positive side of this, these kids that they've been through so much. Imagine being a slave at the age of 5 or 6, and they've been through so much. But what we've really focused on is what can you do for others, and so there's a section of every afternoon where we make masks for the local clinics, and the kids make them out of cloth. They make them out of not N95 masks by any stretch of the imagination, but they're really colorful, and they put their own design on them. And to me, it's a sign that you can always give back. But the end of the day is they need to be giving. We need to be giving to them. They need to. We're bringing teachers in, again, because there is no internet classes that they can take. So we're increasing our education to them in terms of on site where they are, but they're pretty isolated and they need help.
So, David, I know that we've been providing education to these kids over a period of time, and I'm guessing that they can't uh, be in class now. So what are we doing to help them?
Right. Well, and in Thailand, um, unlike perhaps many people who are watching from the United States or Europe, in Thailand, most of the supplies that the student would get for teaching or learning happens in the classroom. Right? They don't get a book to take home necessarily, or notebooks, or so. In essence, we have to recreate the school at the village where we keep the kids, where they live. So there's just an increased need for notebooks and pencils and basic school supplies that they just don't have, because it's not they don't carry it in their backpack. They don't all get their own materials. They're
Mhm.
distributed on site in the classroom. So yeah, we're recreating the education inside the village, and we're recreating food, lunches, and more meals inside. So basically, what we've done is we've taken all the institutional resources, and we've had to replicate them inside our own project. Yeah.
So, David, I know that we have kids of all ages, some of which are older and of working age. What's happening with the older kids?
As you can imagine, Andrew, they're the first to be laid off, or a lot of the work that they were doing were, say, in little cafes or in, say, pop-up stores, and that contact has been really limited, just like it has everywhere else in the world. So almost all of the older kids who have started to enter into the workforce have lost their jobs, and so it just creates a sense of depression about, we're just getting out of a hole, now we're back in the hole. And so I know people have needs all over the world, but when you look at the lives of these kids who are so inspired that they're free now and they're starting to develop a life, and kind of fall back into this sense of scarcity and survival, it's just very difficult for them.
You know, I've always been struck by the power of that story of finding out that human trafficking is happening right under your nose in San Francisco. And I'm really concerned not just with the health impact of this whole crisis, but also with the economic impact. What is the economic impact of this crisis going to mean for those populations that we serve?
Well, not to say we do a lot of work understanding what are the causes, what are the contributing causes that put someone in a place of vulnerability. And really, it comes down to a sense of a lack of rule of law and economic impoverishment. And so it's desperation. People prey on people in desperate need, in circumstances. So traffickers see a unemployed or uh, someone who is in dire need of money, take advantage of their family. And we find that a lot in northern Thailand and Burma, Myanmar, where traffickers will come in and try and find the poorest families and try and convince the parents to let them take their kids, giving them promises like, listen, they'll receive an education, we'll send money back for the work they do, for even if it's begging. And parents sometimes are so desperate they're willing to believe the promises of these traffickers. So it's the economic impact is going to increase the potential for trafficking around the world. And so we have to be that much more vigilant and that much more on contributing to ending that vulnerability or making it or mitigating it.
So, I think a lot of us are feeling kind of powerless, being isolated in our own houses. And one of the things that I'm asking everybody as a part of this is how can we help? I mean,
Yeah.
we all want to help. How can we help?
Yep. Well, we have 150 kids in our village, and I like to say it takes $100 to feed the whole village for a day. This is $100 for a whole day of meals. $50 it takes for one day to provide all the educational supplies they need. And so that's pretty, modest ask. And to know that, your contribution wherever you are in your, in your home is that somewhere around the world that you are helping that village move on and get to a place where they are going to get through this. So one is just, you know, the financial aspect of it. And the other is just keep in touch with us. This really awareness around human trafficking is so important. And the more that you know, the more you can share with others. More people who are equipped to be ambassadors for us.
Great. Well, I really thank you for your time. And I know that Not for Sale is operating in 9 other countries. So I'm hoping that in the coming weeks, we can come back to you and hear about the impact of what's happening in the other countries and what we can be doing to help there.
Well, I appreciate that you're creating this channel for your network, and which will reach beyond, because we all are one. We all are connected, and our actions are going to have a major impact on others. And we're realizing that in the age of a virus, that we're not an island.
You know, David, I've had a long relationship with Not for Sale, and I'm really passionate about what you're doing to fight human trafficking. I really want to help these kids in northern Thailand. So I'm going to make a $1,000 donation to support Not for Sale today as they deal with the unique crisis of the coronavirus and the economic downturn. So I'm hoping that others will do this as well. But thanks for all the great work that you're doing.
Fantastic.
I'm
Wow.
hoping that others will be willing to do this as well. So thanks so
Absolutely.
much.
Wow. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You know, we often just think of our family as the people we were born with or have chosen to be a part of our family. But I think times like this has shown that we're all part of one family and we all need to be there for each other. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate your taking this step. More of us should do this.
excellent. Well, once again, David Batstone from Not for Sale. The information you'll see on your screen right now. Please do whatever you can to support and help these kids in northern Thailand. And we'll be back to tell you more about these important projects in weeks ahead.